from a contemporary professional basketball star to a guy who was one of the best in the game in his day, and for the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, his day has finally come, and many people have asked, why was Jimmy Jones not in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame already? And that just shows you how imperfect our nomination process is. He wasn't on the ballot. There's 27 different sports categories, and somehow, because he had gone off and played in Utah, and the ABA was no longer, and there were so many great players from Grambling, and most of them were football guys, he didn't show up on the ballot. As soon as he got on the ballot, he got elected. I mean, it was 1 year, boom, you're in. And that was kind of like playing defense against Jimmy Jones. Boom, that guy done scored on you. You better get back and try to stop him the next possession. He's come in from Las Vegas, brought his golf game with him. One of the greatest players in the history of the ABA and of Grambling State University from Tallulah, Louisiana, Jimmy Jones.
Whoa. You know, growing up in Louisiana, I've been gone. Geez, how long have I been gone from Louisiana? It's been a long time. I guess when you get this age, you forget a lot of stuff, right? But that's not true. Too many young people forget stuff I ask them about. But anyway, this is a tremendous honor. And like Doug called me last summer, and you know, he said, "I don't know how we missed you." I said, "Well, you know, things happen, and I'm just glad you got it right." But this is a tremendous honor. And you know, growing up playing basketball, you never think about the Hall of Fame. You know, I've been a big fan of sports all my life, except horse racing. You know, and you know, you don't have but room for so many sports. And if they wasn't scoring points, it's like I tell my friends from these different countries now, I don't like soccer, they don't score much. You know, you play the whole game and score 1 or 2 points. So it just wasn't me. But I'm a big sports fan. I played pro basketball for 10 years, and now I'm back to a sports fan. You know, big baseball fan, basketball, football, those 3 major sports. And you know, I started watching NASCAR because one day I was flipping the TV and I saw those guys changing the tires, and I said, that's enough for me to watch it right there. But I'm a big sports fan, and like I say, I admire guys going into the Hall of Fame. I never thought about it really, even though I tell you, the only time I really thought about it when y'all put Slick Watts in the Hall of Fame. And I said, what was that, about
2 years ago?
2 years ago? Yeah, and I talked to him. He and I, you know, were good buddies. You know, he talked about how I got him ready for the NBA. But you know, that's the first time I thought about it.
Y'all played college ball against each other?
No, he was in school when I was playing for New Orleans. He was at Xavier, and we used to play, you know, pickup games in the summer after the season was over, and it was real good. Aaron James was there. Bruce Steele, I don't know if you remember Bruce, but it's been a lot of great athletes from Louisiana. And like I said, growing up in Tallulah, anybody know what Tallulah is? A few people.
Carl Otis Trimble.
That's right, played at LSU, right? Yeah, I remember him. Lonnie, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. I heard your voice. I was telling Irvin over there. I said, that sounds like Buddy Davis. But this is a tremendous honor. And like I say, you don't think about individual honors when you playing team sports. But, you know, I had a lot of great teammates over the years. And I could tell you right today, most of my best friends are my team or ex-teammates, guys I played ball with in high school, college, and professional basketball. And so basketball has meant a lot to me. I learned a lot. And, you know, I tell everybody that my grandmother gave me the foundation for life, but basketball and Coach Hopley at Grambling really put it all together for me.
Talk about Coach Hopley.
Oh, man. You know, Coach Hopley was one of these coaches like Bobby Knight, I guess. That's the type of coach he was. I mean, you know, he was a tough coach. And, you know, I think Buddy asked me this, something to the effect that, did Coach Hopley ever get mad with me? Something like that. And I just don't remember at all, you know, as tough as he was. But, you know, like we grew up playing basketball, you played as hard as you could all the time you were on the court. And a lot of times, this is all coaches are asking for. just to give your best, give the effort, bring the energy, as they say now, right? Back in the old days, we didn't say the energy, but this is all they asked for, and this is the type of player I was, and so I never had any run-ins with Coach Hopley. He was, I tell you the truth, and Buddy brought this out also. I wasn't really in love with playing basketball until I got to college, because I played baseball in college. That was my first love. I mean, high school, my first love. And so when I got to Grambling, though, Coach Hopley, I never forget, 1963, summer of 1963, just out of high school, and Coach Hopley, the first week we had like orientation and whatever. The next week we were on the basketball court. And back in those days, there wasn't no 20 hours. It might be 20 hours in a day you practice, but not no 20 hours a week. And he had us going. So, that's when I really fell in love with the game, because, it was just consuming my life at that time. I mean, left high school being an A student and go to college and about to flunk out, because, we practice all the time. I mean, we practice 6-7 hours a day. And so, I mean, we practiced like an hour and a half after school from 3:30 to 5, I think it was. And then we had to come back at 7 until. So it was tough. And, I know that's what made me a great player, is all that work that we had to put in.
Any type of knee surgeries?
Knee surgeries?
That type of stress?
Well, in the pros. Once I got to the pros, I did. But in college, no. No injuries. No injuries in college at all. I think maybe I don't know, I didn't miss many games in college at all.
So the transition from being a very great college player to going to pros was a little different back then, because you had 2 leagues to choose from. Talk about choosing between the NBA, the ABA, the pros and cons of your choices that you had to make, and then validation of it and being in the ABA.
Yeah. Well, the choice really wasn't hard, believe it or not, because back in those days, basketball wasn't like it is today. Basketball is huge. I mean, all sports, it's 24/7. And back in those days, it wasn't like that. So they only had 12 teams in the NBA at that time. And so this was 1967, and I got drafted by the Bullets and the New Orleans Bucks. They were a new team. And so, when I go on this Wikipedia, they have the information about you. And I tried to change what they put in there about me, but they keep changing it back. And so what happened was, when the Bullets drafted me, they drafted me in the 2nd round. So I was like the 13th pick that year in the draft. And a couple teams had said they were going to draft me, but they didn't. And I guess the biggest honor came when I first met Bill Russell. And I never forget, he told me, he said, "Man, we should have drafted you." And I said, "Well, I wish I had. I would have had a championship." But the choice wasn't hard at all, really, because I just didn't believe that they would play 2 rookie guards in Baltimore in 1967. And back in those days, it wasn't that many blacks in sports. It was like, I guess the quota was maybe 1 or 2 on a team. And so, believe it or not, people, I tell people that story, they can't fathom that, especially young people. They can't fathom that. And I said, but that was it. And then, so I went to New Orleans. So when New Orleans came along, Babe McCarthy was the coach, who was the coach at Mississippi State. And, they were the first, I think they were the first team to take this was back during segregation, for people giving y'all a history lesson. It was black and white, that's all you saw in this country. And it was, blacks on one side of the track, I should say the other side of the tracks, and whites on the other side of the track. And so a lot of things got lost back in that day, but the thing is, when they drafted me, like I said, I knew they wasn't going to play. I just knew they wasn't going to play 2 of us. Earl Monroe was the number 1 pick. I was the number 2 pick. And I knew they wasn't going to play it. So when Babe McCarthy called, and he said, we drafted you, and we really want you to come play for us. And he started telling me about the new league and all that. And like I said, back in those days, I wasn't thinking about playing pro basketball at all, believe it or not. And so when he called to tell me about the new league and all this, I said, "Well, that sounds good." And he, told me he's going to get paid. You know, you didn't think about getting paid. I didn't think about playing pro basketball, getting paid. I really didn't. And this was 1967, so that was a long time ago. And so, you know, when he came up, brought me a car, brought me money, contract and all that stuff. Hey, I signed it right there. I was ready to go. And because he told me how much he wanted me, and he wanted to build his team around me and all this stuff. So, like I say, I signed it with no problem. I didn't even call the Bullets to let them know that I was signing with them. I was gone. And so, I know you probably
better end of the deal.
That's right. And I know you were going to ask this question too. Is that my first year in New Orleans? I played with Hall of Fame coach today, Larry Brown, and he was the point guard, and I was the two guard. And one of the big things, man, I'm talking too much, right? I'm long-winded.
Work it out tonight, Saturday night.
Okay, got to be short Saturday night, right? Okay. I already got it mapped out Saturday night. 2.5 minutes. But Larry Brown was a great influence on my life, and even today, I go places and meet guys. For example, Joe Dumars. I think he's from here, right? First time I met him about 3 years ago in Las Vegas for the NBA Summer League, and I was passing by him, going to see someone else, and he called me, and I went over and he introduced himself. I knew he was once I saw him. And he told me, he said, oh man, Larry Brown and I just got through talking about you, this and that. So Larry has been a big fan of mine ever since. So like I said, that first year in New Orleans, I'm playing with all these veteran guys who had been out for a while, and I was the only rookie. And so it was a great experience. Went to the finals that year and lost to the Pittsburgh Pipers, which was that was my first time to the finals. You remember that? So old guys remember this stuff, man. So. But anyway, that's, like I said, the choice wasn't hard at all to go to the ABA because, I knew I was going to play. And that's the main thing that a basketball player or any sports player want to do is play. You want to, you don't want to sit on the sideline. You want to ride the horse, right? Yeah, you don't want to be the substitute. So that was my motivation for, easily selecting New Orleans.
You're just out of college, you go to the ABA. They put this red, white, and blue balloon in your hand and tell you can shoot 3-pointers.
Oh man, I tell you, believe it or not, when you're playing basketball, I don't know how Irvin, you've never played with that ball, have you? You don't see the ball. Believe it or not, you don't see the ball. I mean, it's just like, things you think are obvious to everybody. Your focus can be so small that you just don't see it. Didn't see anything because you're looking at the goal, not the ball. But it was different, no doubt about that. And in the beginning with that ball, though, it was very slick. It was they hadn't, I guess, roughed it up or whatever. But it was hard to hold. It was hard to grip. But the thing is, not many people were watching us.
Not at Loyola. Not at Loyola Field.
That's right. Or in the ABA period.
Yeah, some places.
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference in transitioning from the ABA to the NBA? I know a lot of players have talked about that.
Well, for me, it wasn't that big of a transition because, I was playing basketball.
Yeah.
And, we had played against those guys in exhibition season for a couple of years. And, but again, it was sort of like going from Grambling to the Pan American trials in 1968, where, you had the NCAA players, you had the NAIA players, all the school, all the players that were invited. And now you're playing against guys who were supposed to be better players. So the transition wasn't that difficult at all. And like I'm telling my grandson, he plays at a small school in Virginia. And I just explained to him, I said, you have the skills to play against anybody. All you have to do is make sure you have the confidence to play against them because you have the skills. You can do the things that you need to do to play against anybody. And so, I pretty much understood that, especially after college, being at Grambling for 4 years. You learn all the basics and how to do it all.
You're on the clock at the NBA draft, and you can pick any player in the history of the game. Who is your number one guy you pick?
Dang. That's a hard question. That really is. That really is.
Irvin would be your top pick.
I tell you the truth, you know, that question comes up all the time. Who are the top 5 players, this and that? And I heard Julius Erving talking about that one day, and you know, he named his top 5, and there was no young players. I couldn't believe it. It was, and he said, the guy was asking, he was on a talk show in Vegas. He comes out there a lot, play golf, because there's a lot of golf out there. These guys come out to play. And he was just talking about, I guess, the guy that, like, we watched growing up, because he's like probably 5 or 6 years younger than me. And, you know, he said, I just believe that those guys will find a way to beat anybody. You know, he named Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Oscar Robinson, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and I think he named Bob Pettit also. Yeah, you know, that was his thing. So be honest with you, I say you go pick whoever you want. You know, if we're picking teams, you know, I'll let you pick first. You know, you can pick 5 and then I'll pick 5.
But as a follow-up, even in Louisiana,
Oh yeah.
you could pick a pretty good team.
That's right. That's right. You know, James Harris, he's a big basketball fan. He's always talking about that. He said he was up in North Carolina and some guys were on him about, thought they had the best basketball players in the world. And he said, nah, man, see, you got to see these guys from Louisiana. You don't know about these guys from Louisiana. And he started naming those guys. He said, how many guys from North Carolina could make this Louisiana team? You know, he said maybe Jordan could make it. But other than that, you know, these guys have a hard time making this team in Louisiana. Now, all those guys probably look Hall of Fame, right? Yeah, we got a lot of good guys from here, a lot of good athletes. You know, I remember watching Irvin. I used to root for those guys when they were with the Bucks, man, making the playoffs. I forget who, some team I was really rooting for y'all to beat, man. I said, man, Irvin needs to score about 20 points today, man.
I don't know what team that was. Philadelphia, maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember, but you know, like I said, I know all these guys. Big fan, you know, watching sports, you know, watching them growing up, and it was joy watching these guys.
What are you doing today? What do you do?
I have my own marketing business. Back in the day, I signed up with a company called Amway, and what has happened over the years, they developed 2 of the top named brands in the world, Artistry Cosmetics and Nutrilite Vitamins, which is the #1 vitamin in the world. And I got quite a few customers. I'm enjoying doing that today.
You playing a little golf.
Playing lots of golf. I play a lot of golf, 2-3 times a week, huh?
Are you as good with little balls you were with?
No, I got a long way to go with that one. I've come a long way in 2 years, though. I started back playing 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and I hadn't played since I was in my 20s. That was 40-some years ago. And one of my friends got me to go out and play with him about 3 or 4 years ago now, and I had a hole-in-one. And so I said, hey, I must need to start back playing golf. And so 2 years later, I started back playing, so you know, I'm into it now. I promise it won't be this long Saturday night.
James Jimmy Jones, y'all.